indistinct, and hazy. And if I were to use it in a sentence, I would bring out my electronic device, which says, the first movie was a blockbuster, so sequels were made under the nebulous idea of science fiction. Thank you.
And you will be looking for a word of the day, a word picture?
I will also be looking for the word picture, so this descriptive use of words. Paint a picture in my mind.
Something that is not nebulous. All right. Well, to kind of follow this purple train of thought, let's move into the idea of learning something about Toastmasters and being able to take a nugget of something that is important. Our one minute Toastmaster today is a person who is a real Vikings fan. He said that when the Vikings take over and go 10-0 this year, that they will be really kind of on that purple rain of things. So let's welcome our 1 minute Toastmaster, which would be Vince Bollinger. Vince?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. The verbiage I sent to Mike was, when the Vikings start winning Super Bowls, what they call our dynasty the Purple Rain. So, if you didn't know, Chris is a giant Vikings fan, and that's why he used the purple color all the time, and he wrote a Vikings song. Anyway, so if you know anything about me and 1 minute Toastmaster, I like to read them from the Toastmaster magazine. And as a member of Toastmasters, you will get this once a month, and it is quite short, quite easy to read, and it is full of a good handful of tips and nuggets, and it is perfect fodder for 1 minute Toastmasters. So I chose this one. The title is What's the Word? And it is about choosing a word of the day, which our grammarian just gave us, and it gives a couple of tips about what to do when you're trying to figure out the word of the day. So for example, it says add a touch of the exotic. Don't use words that we use all the time. It would be weird to say something like dog for the word of the day, for example, or chair or whatever it is. Something that maybe you don't use much for. In fact, their specific example is cousin, which we actually have used before quite recently, in the last 6 months. And it says, well, it's great, but not only are exotic words just fun to use or say, but it also increase our vocabulary. But you have to be a little bit careful. Working these words into speeches can be a creative challenge. What you're getting at here is that when you use a slightly exotic word, you want to make sure that you don't use a word that is difficult to fit into speech. Now, something like nebulous is a word that maybe people don't use very frequently, but it's just unclear, hazy. That's actually going to be somewhat easy. It's not going to be a word that is nebulous to understand. So with that, I'd like to turn that back over to our Toastmaster and remind everyone once again, read the magazine and use it for little tips and tricks to improve your public speaking and leadership skills. Thank you.
And to make sure that we're on time, I'm sure that our timer has a good idea of what's going on. But our timer today is Brian Hugh. Brian, can you give us a quick overview of your role?
Yes, this timer, I'll be timing the start time and end time of the meetings, the table topics, the length of the breaks, and each of the speeches, as well as the evaluation for the meeting. Thank you.
All right. And now we dive into that best part of the meeting where we have some impromptu speaking. In our impromptu speaking table topic master, the person who really, I said, so what is your favorite thought about purple? And what you're going to learn about, Toastmasters is that if you don't reply back with some good information for an introduction, people will come up with things like Merriam-Webster or just invent something off the wall. But today was one of those purple days where we really wanted to look at what it is about, I don't know, it's kind of weird, isn't it? And to take us through that nebulous weirdness, let's bring our Toastmaster today, Marie Fromm. Marie?
I am the table topics master, so this is going to be the impromptu speaking. And I think one of the things that came to my mind in purple is LGBTQ Spirit Day, which is the second Friday in October. And it's a day designated to support and wear purple for LGBT youth that face bullying. And this was recognized as a day to address the youth suicides that face bullying. It's incidentally the colors on the LGBT flag. The purple stands for spirit. Each one means something. So in the theme of purple, I'll continue. Can everybody raise your hands if you're eligible for table topics? And just pretty much, okay. Start with William. What's your favorite aspect about purple?
Thank you, Marie, for that. This is Table Topics Master for that question about what is my favorite aspect of purple. As I stated in my grammarian introduction, whenever I think of purple, and especially what's going on with the Prince thing, that's the scene that comes to mind. The scene that was shot in First Avenue. I just recently saw that on Facebook, I believe, where they showed, instead of a, say, 10-second introduction of Purple Rain, it was 3-4 minutes of just the same chord being played over and over and over. It's clear that Prince was very in touch with his audience, that he could get their emotions involved. So I guess that's what I would think of when I think of the color purple, is that scene from First Avenue where Prince was shooting Purple Rain.
Thank you. Leanne, what would be your favorite aspect about purple?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. So in terms of my favorite aspect of purple, and again, going along the theme of Prince, since that's sort of in the world right now, I would say there was something that I found online that was quite interesting with Kevin Smith, the filmmaker. If any of you know his work, he did Clerks, Dogma, some other obscure films. And he was doing a documentary with Prince, and it was very nebulous. It was not a formal documentary. And he was actually talking, and somebody said, "What's going on with this documentary with Prince?" And he said, and he basically went off on a story for 30 minutes talking about this experience he had with a week of spending time with Prince, not being paid, nothing formal. Very, very good storyteller. So if you're interested in an example of storytelling, I would check it out. But that's been on my mind in terms of just purple and Prince in the last week. So thank you.
Thank you. And Alex, could I get your take on purple?
Thank you, Madam Table Topic Master. What is my take on purple? I know that historically, purple color was not easy to produce. And especially in ancient world, it takes special sea creatures to get a purple color. And now there is Egyptian purple that has special electromagnetic qualities in it. So now in Japan, they're studying it, how to use it in superconducting levitation magnetic trains with mixture of magnetic field and magnetism and the purple color. So purple was a royal color because it was very expensive to produce. Of course, at this time, technology devalues everything. So you can have purple, you can have red, it does not matter. But still, purple is associated to some kind with something unusual. And this is my understanding. Maybe this is to some extent nebulous explanation of purple, but otherwise I don't have anything else. Thank you.
No. Tony, I noticed yesterday the legislature was discussing making purple the official Minnesota color. What's your thoughts on Minnesota's color being established as purple?
Thank you, Madam Topic Master, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. I don't really have an opinion on the subject. I tend to think that state colors and state birds and state whatevers don't necessarily make a lot of sense. Or don't have a lot of relevancy. It's a rather nebulous topic to begin with. So I don't have much of an opinion on that. And as to Prince, I have to confess that I am a musical illiterate. I might recognize some of the songs if I heard them, but could I name a song written by him? Probably not. So thank you.
And Katie, were you able to get out this weekend and see any of the purple buildings and the bridges? And I'm kind of curious about your thought of leaving the 35W bridge purple longer than just a weekend and some of the buildings. What's your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. Well, like Tony, I must confess that I've been a bit out of the loop when it comes to everything going on, despite all of the Prince music looping on all of our radio stations ad infinitum for the past week. I have not actually been by the 35 Bridge or by Paisley Park or any of the large landmarks. I've seen a couple of photos on the internet of things that have been done, but mostly I have been inside in the arguably purple, but perhaps more indigo, cerulean glow of my computer, and also in the company of fellow nerds at Mini Bar. So I have to admit, it's just sort of passed me by. It's a nebulous entity on the horizon of my consciousness.
Thank you. And Eric, could I get your take on purple and as far as the various displays in purple and what you think about the stage?
So thank you very much. And one of my first memories of Prince are when he first built Paisley Palace, and I was young at the time, and I lived out in that area, and I remember my dad taking us, and Highway 5 was just a 2-lane road, and you could hardly see Paisley Park from Highway 5, and we drove up to by the gates, and there was these big German Shepherd dogs that came running at the gates and were barking at you, so I was always fearful of this place, and that was my memories of Paisley Park, was that it was a dangerous place and nobody should go there. Now this week on the news, it's being portrayed as this palace kind of place for a prince. So those are my recollections of Prince and Purple Rain.
Thank you. Clea, I was reading about purple, and I found historically that Monet, as he aged, his eyes became more cloudy because of cataracts, and he ultimately had one lens removed so he could see more clearly. And much to his surprise, not only could he see more clearly, but he could actually see further into the ultraviolet or purple spectrum. And so that changed the way he painted. There was very different paintings of flowers and just objects after he had one lens removed. If you could see further into the ultraviolet or purple spectrum, what do you think would be the coolest aspect of that?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, Table Topics Master. As a fellow painter myself, I have studied Monet quite extensively, and I think anyone who looks at his paintings can see the progression of his eyesight or loss of eyesight, especially in some of his paintings in his garden in the lily, his very famous paintings where he has a series of the same painting done different points of the year, different days, different times within the day. So you can start to see the difference of the lighting and how it transforms the environment around you. And for him, as his eyesight decreased, he started to play with colors and really emphasize the impressionistic style. So Monet was one of the forefronts of the impressionist style as people moved away, or artists moved away from doing true realism, and he was a pioneer in his time, not really recognized till towards the end of his life. And at that point, he started to lose his eyesight. So as a painter, to lose your eyesight, I can only imagine the pain that you must feel. But from your story, which I did not know, it sounds like he was able to take that loss and really start to play with the colors and explore in a deeper sense his artistic abilities. So if I were to lose my eyesight or have the ability to see more ultraviolet, I too think I would play with colors in a more extreme way when I would paint or live my life. Thank you.
And Vince, I was was researching that in Roman times or in past history, since purple was considered a color of royalty, if you were not royalty or if you're a non-aristocrat, you could actually be killed for wearing purple. What's your thoughts about the government imposing death for wearing purple for commoners?
Thank you, Madam TechMasters, fellow TechMasters, and honored guests. I think this is just a travesty, man. And if you know me, you know that I love totalitarian governments and think the government should be able to dictate anything and everything we ever do. But I believe that purple is such a wonderful color that everyone should wear it as much as frequently, and as much as possible and as frequently as possible. Obviously, because I am very partial to the color purple because I like football far too much. With that said, I'm extremely excited to draft this upcoming Thursday. I'd like to talk about that if you don't mind. So I think the guys we should target most, obviously the last night balls and the officers, not that he was a really big deal, he was obviously way overpaid for what we were asking him to do. He really didn't listen very much. And he went to go play for the Baltimore Ravens, which was exactly the perfect fit for who I thought he should play for, because he had this guy, Joe Flacco, like 6'6", and he was like 250, and swinging like 75, 80 yards. Perfect fit for a guy like Mike Wallace. So a guy that we kind of needed, somebody to really go get it, a really good possession receiver, somebody who really clear-headed, real good teammate, things like that. So I think we should somebody like Michael Thomas out of Ohio State. Not that in Ole Miss, not that he's all like that, but he's not a perfect fit. Besides, why would you want to take him anywhere near the first round, right? And beyond that, I might think of maybe somebody a little more exciting, like a Josh Jackson or Laquan Treadwell. So thank you, Madam Tabletop, for this very important and perfect question. But to answer your question, I think that honestly, the government should be telling us. I agree with Tony that the government shouldn't be involved in making official anything whatsoever. It makes no sense. Official color, they shouldn't be telling us we can't wear a specific thing. It doesn't make any sense at all. And with that, I guess I'll just turn it over because I have nothing else. Thank you.
Oh, to our representative. Sorry, Brian.
Thank you. So with that purple topic in mind, one of the things about this whole Prince-Andrew family really, it's like you come home and it just kind of, you see it, you feel it, you know it. My experience with Prince is hard to say, because it's like, I was a real big Prince fan when I was a kid growing up, and I moved to a place out in this town called Chanhassen where all of a sudden we had this neighbor who happened to also be there. And what astonished me last week was when I heard about what happened was Thursday, and I was about ready to get up and do a full, a whole bunch of presenting. And it was just kind of into just this weird spot. And it's like, okay, when someone passes away or there's a change in things, it's like, how does it affect you and how do you respond to it and how do you go into the rest of it? And with that in mind, I thought it'd be kind of fun to take that into the break so that we can get our two speakers to come up in the front, our general evaluator. I believe we've got two evaluators. We may need an extra evaluator. So if you could please come up here. Mr. Timer, if you could give us an exact 5-minute timing. We are tight on time, so we need to get to that. And at 8:20, we will continue. Okay, quick break. All right.
Who is speaking?
So Leanne and Tony are speaking.
Okay.
And yours is 5 or 7? Yours is 5 or 7. I have your title. I have your title.
Yeah.
That's not on your slide deck. So, and the other way?
So we need one more evaluator.
We need one more.
Okay. Are you the evaluator?
Yeah, I think I did go before.
Okay.
No, you're,
What?
Because
Yeah, I'll go to turn. So speaking order, you need to use the thing. Do you want to use the next 3 minutes to get plugged in?
sure.
Do you have what we're
I
doing?
have a thing, so.
Okay, so,
We can get it on there, and then.
okay. I'm just worried about the transition between, so what would be easier way? Do you have a preference on speaking order?
Because you are sticking, I can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not.
Maybe your preference first or
really?
I'll look at
Okay, so
Tony-
when you.
Tony's first, and then Leanne, and And then go ahead and sign your documents.
Vince, you, Tony.
Yeah, we just.
Alex,
He just like.
I'm sorry.
Anything beyond this?
Yeah.
I scanned them. I had 2 of them left.
You know, you want that?
No, but I have. I wanted to go to the next one.
So I just looked around and I
Yeah, I'm like, man, it's really cool. That many seals and everything. He does, yeah. Right.
We actually.
Savages will burn your furniture. You cannot let this happen. The savages will burn your furniture. Actually,
It's small enough.
Actually got that for Toastmasters when I joined 20 some odd years ago. Because I was doing something for whatever's on my notes in there. And then when Vince gave me the great big tub, it was like, so little.
A minute.
Okay.
We have something. Try to do something.
No, there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all about imagination. I thought that was the best way to introduce
Stuff is so really difficult. It is more like the best section to go over is fine. So it's like
So I noticed that I still have the gavel here, and the great thing about it is this is big enough you can really make a lot of noise. But if you want to make a lot of noise, you got to be thinking about how can I make an impact into this world of technology. And there's been an evolution at a company that I used to work for called Microsoft, in which they are no longer just pushing the old blue badge, packaged product, go out and buy Office and put it on your machine. Now you get a license to Office 365 and you subscribe to that service. And Satya Nadella has done a lot of different things in bringing the entire company and the momentum of what they do into the cloud and service era. And along that lines, there's a lot of great stuff coming. Our first speaker today is someone who has worked with technology in a lot of different forms and has brought stuff together. And when I was asking about, how did you think about this, he was telling me about this kid named Harold who had a purple crayon. And he said, you know what? Harold and this purple crayon have something to say about technology. So welcome, Tony Birdstead, talking today about, look, Mom, no windows.
I thought today it would be fun to do a demo of something that's a little bit different than what I normally do. Visual Studio Code and .NET. Everybody's used to Visual Studio and Microsoft tools and thinking, oh wow, this is only for Windows. Not so. Recently, Microsoft introduced Visual Studio Code. It's about a year old. Coder, an editor that people can download and run in any environment. You can run it on Windows, of course, but you can also use it on a Mac, like this thing here, or on Linux. This is pretty incredible. And to go along with that, they've introduced their next version of .NET. It's sort of on the cusp of being ready. I think they're in about a beta right now. It's .NET that will run anywhere. You can use the .NET executable. And today we're going to take a quick look at how we might use .NET. So .NET, it's not just for Windows anymore. And look, Mom, no Windows. And on to the demo. Let's get that. We'll come over here. Well, the first thing we're going to do is come out here to a command prompt. And I have a couple of them. Here we have, I'm sitting in my root directory here. One of the things that they've been trying to do with .NET is make it more compatible with all the internet standards. Make it work with GitHub. Visual Studio and .NET work with GitHub. If you've used the latest version of even the standard Visual Studio, you'll see that GitHub Git integrations built right into it. They're also using a lot of other standard things. So to build a new .NET project, they have this tool called Yeoman. We'll just say Yo. And it says, what do you want to do? Well, in this case, I've only got one thing that Yeoman's configured to do, and that's run ASP.NET. Well, what kind of ASP.NET do I want to do? Well, we're going to do a very basic web application here. Let's call it hello.net. Whoa, there it is. This as big as the screen can get. And we're going to want to go back and do some things, but there's a couple little things that we have to do in order to get it to build right. So first thing you'll notice is they've got this little thing called JavaScript notation, and for defining their project files and information about .NET, the new structure is to actually use JSON. In order to get this to compile, we're going to do a couple things. We have to change an order. This is one of those things that you learn playing with it a little bit. So we'll cut that, paste it down there. Oh, and standard one. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Standard things that, like the little red squiggle saying, oops, there's an error there. It wants a closing brace. Well, really what it wants is the comma to be there, and no comma to be there. I have turned on autosave. So as I type, it actually saves it immediately. I don't have to go and immediately change the file. It's a cool little feature. Now we'll flip back here to the command window. And it tells us a couple things that we need to do. Let's do this. Move to that directory. And then we have to this is going to go out and get all of the things that this particular package depends on. .NET depends. They've moved everything in .NET into dependency packages. Now we build it. And it built. The reason I made the little change that I did is there's different environments you can build for. And in order to build with the .NET 5 version, I had to make that little change. Otherwise, it builds it and can't find things. And finally, DNS. Okay, so we come over here, open a browser window. And then here we go. This is a .NET window. This is .NET hitting the local computer, running locally. So we come back over here to the .NET code. We'll open up a list of files. And here you see standard things. Here's C# code. Here's views, so we'll make a little change on the .NET here and just say back here. Let's rebuild it again. I believe I could set it up to automate the build. And there we have our little hello there shown. This is .NET code created using Visual Studio Code, superstructure, and running completely on a Mac without any Windows involved whatsoever. And we will do that. And where can you get it? It's very easy to find, code.visualstudio.com, and then there's a couple interesting documents on how you would actually load that framework. Anybody who wants this, come up and talk to me afterwards, and I'll get a copy of the links for you. But that is Visual Studio running on a Mac, running a website, created in Visual Studio, using Visual Studio on a Mac without using Windows. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tony. Yeah, it's a very different world, but with Microsoft is now really reached beyond where they were. It's a very different kind of a thing, and there's all kinds of new things that we can go out and look at. Our second speaker told me about the purple madness that she was thinking of, and just kind of how you deal with all this technology. And she actually has a very deep topic that she's going to talk to us today, which is on autism and technology. Feel welcome, Leanne Miller.
Olala.
Then we'll get started. So,
So thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. So I wanted to talk about autism and technology. One out of every 68 children is diagnosed on the high-functioning autism spectrum. And so in the last several years, this is just something that we've read more about in the media. It's been more prevalent as more kids are being diagnosed. And it was sort of intriguing and just curious for me, so I've been reading about it quite a bit. And within the autism spectrum, Asperger's syndrome and high-functioning autism are often referred to as the same diagnosis, but currently they're considered separate diagnoses. So there's just sort of a lot of debate, and I think as new things and kids are being born and sort of having this condition, there's a lot of unknowns, very nebulous right at the moment. So this became a little bit more personal in last year when my nephew was diagnosed as being high-functioning autism. So this is JT. This was actually taken a few years ago in San Francisco, and he is considered high-functioning autistic as well as he has ADHD. And for him, in his educational career, again, he's 10 years old, he's been kicked out of 3 schools. And most recently, in the last semester, my sister and her husband decided to take him out of school and homeschool him. And so he's gone from being a student whose grades were failing to actually being on the honor roll in the last semester. So it's been a success story. He's doing online courses and he loves it. So in addition to online school, he's a Minecraft junkie. So he's been learning how to code, he's been learning Java, he's been learning specific code for Minecraft. And then a few weeks ago, he actually started his own YouTube channel, and he's been posting every Sunday on YouTube his little sort of orientation and snippets on Minecraft. And these are his friends, these are his online communities. So it's a really big deal for him, to the point that he said, this is a dream come true for me, that I wanted to post this video and do this for the last year, and he's just gotten to do it. So it's really cute. So he also has a drone, which I got him for Christmas. That was high on his list. So he flies around the neighborhood and then he downloads his video content. He's on Facebook. He loves chatting. He loves texting. And one of the challenges in school, and I think a lot of teachers are challenged with, how do you deal with kids who have conditions like this? And so one of those ways is, or one example I should say, is he has to learn cursive or writing penmanship, right? And it's gotten so frustrating for him to the point that he was crying several times because he really just wants to type. His brain works fast, he's not interested in writing. So that was just one example of perhaps technology and education needing to modify for kids who are dealing with challenges. So the other interesting thing is Siri he considers one of his best friends. He uses Siri a lot. There was an article a couple years ago in the New York Times that was quite circulated. A woman wrote about her son, who's 13, who used Siri a lot and also called Siri his best friend. So it was really a tool to ask questions, to communicate, to feel like he had a buddy. So it was really, again, another piece of technology that's been extremely valuable for these kids. So the other thing is the app world. There are hundreds of apps specifically dealing with, for kids with autism. So I did a quick search on iTunes and several hundred, including one app that will help you navigate 30 different categories within autism in terms of apps for kids. Even Sesame Street has their own app dealing with autism for kids as well, which I thought was interesting. And then I think about, as these kids are graduating into adulthood, how are they integrating with technology and within the business world? So I don't know, did anybody see the movie The Big Short? Okay, so great movie if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. This character, played by Christian Bale, is an adult who is Asperger's, has Asperger's. He actually is extremely smart. He's went to school and was a doctor, and then shifted his career to be in the finance and investment world. Was not diagnosed with Asperger's until his son was diagnosed. And again, this is a true story based on a real person. So very interesting in terms of if you watch his character in the movie, he's extremely brilliant, but very socially awkward. So one example of that. And then I pulled a couple other examples of people, again, popular culture, who are considered people with autism. So Susan Boyle of American Idol fame, Tim Burton film director, Dan Aykroyd. Okay, I'm blanking on his name. Filmmaker. It'll come to me.
Quentin?
Daryl Hannah, and then Steve Jobs, who I read, again, not formally diagnosed, but there was some speculation that he was had Asperger's. Stanley Kubrick came to me. So as we are being people who work in the world of technology and have children, and obviously this is again becoming more prevalent, and had me think about how businesses are reacting to this or dealing with this. And I was pleasantly surprised to find that Microsoft is really embracing hiring people with these conditions, with autism. So this is a quote from a vice president at Microsoft whose son has autism, and so it's near to her heart. And again, this was a blog post within the last year that they're really looking at how do we manage people like this, how do we hire talent, because again, a lot of them are software developers, coders, etc. So I just think, as this has been on my radar and sort of near to me, it's something to be aware of. And again, I'm pleasantly surprised that companies like Microsoft are embracing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Lots of great stuff today. So to kind of take us into the next part of the meeting, which is where we can get some feedback. One of the most important parts about Toastmasters is you get to flip the screen to the end. It's not a touch screen, it's this.
Or change computers entirely.
You could,
Oh, yeah.
or I could just unplug it. And we could plug this in over here. Does that just work that way? Yeah. So technology is great, especially when it works. And the challenge of getting technology to work is to just find the right place to plug things so that they just kind of pop up, things just happen. And one of the things that's just going to happen is we've got this whole world of crazy stuff going every which way. And I think Purple and our general evaluator said squirrels. And so let's welcome our general evaluator, Clea Livingston, Purple Squirrels.
Purple squirrel is a term that I've used in my past jobs. When you're looking for someone who's an anomaly, you call them a purple squirrel. You'll never find it, but if you do, it's an amazing thing. So to wrap up the rest of our meeting, I'm going to start the voting process and end from there. So could everyone please bow their head, and if you think that if you think Tony was the best speaker, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. And if you thought that Leanne was the best speaker, please raise your hand. Thank you. Perfect, you can raise your heads. To evaluate Tony, we have Vince. And Vince, could you please give your evaluation of Tony?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Tony. Your speech was introducing visual video code and .NET Core, amongst other possible titles. And you were speaking on the manual for your body speaks. So the first thing here, topic selection. I said code demo. This is going to be tough for your body speaks. With that in mind, I would say that your preparation on what it is that you're actually speaking was obviously very good. You had a very good script on what you're going to do. You were able to walk through getting Visual Studio Code to run. It wasn't like you were saying you didn't do the Julia Child, here's the prefabricated and finished. You actually walked through and what you were saying. Everything worked according to plan, and it was great. The manner, as far as your body speaking, your mannerisms are kind of one of the softer areas of your skill set here. And I thought that I checked, marked the box here, confident, enthusiastic, and I would say that you were better than typical. You were a little more confident, a little less hesitant, and your thoughts didn't come across as being nebulous, as they might typically do from time to time. There's a lot of times where it seems what's going on in your head, could be wrong, but it seems like there's a lot of things being bantered around in your head, and it takes you a little bit to hesitate and decide what it is you're going to say. So it sounds like you're being hesitant, but you're not. You just have a lot to say and a lot to think about. Your posture, you're standing up, even though you were doing a code memo, you're standing up very straight. You had very good poise, and I thought that was going to be one of the tougher areas, but I thought you did a great job in that regard. As far as the gestures are concerned, which is kind of important for your body speak, you did a lot of the typical ones, like if you're saying something moving forward or coming back or anything like that people do a lot of. But one thing I noticed that kind of jumped out at me is when you said on the cusp, you didn't just say on the cusp or do this. You took your hand, you curved over like on the cusp, like literally you could see that there was a cusp and you were on it. I thought that was really good. Body movement, again, this is one of the soft areas of your skill set, and I noticed that it was a bit hesitant as typical. You're kind of just a little back and forth, a little bit not quite sure about how you're going to move, and it's slightly distracting, so it's something to work on. Eye contact, I thought this was a very strong showing on your part today. So I noticed that you looked all around and you didn't give token gestures. Like sometimes when I think to myself, oh, there's someone sitting here and I'm talking, I'm going to quickly look over there and I give them token glance. I didn't see any of that at all. It seemed to me like you're actually establishing useful eye contact. Because if I really cared, I was talking to Will, but I'm not actually. I think you did a very good job of that. Facial expression, I marked a box that says animated, friendly, and genuine. And literally, if I had to use 3 words to explain the facial expressions that I saw from you, I would say they were animated, they seemed friendly, and they seemed genuine, like you actually meant what you were saying. Speech purpose and speech organization, that was, I would say, the weaker part of this, because it was introduction to Visual Studio Code and getting it and working on Mac, but it seemed like you were trying to tell us all about it, but in reality, it's just a quick walkthrough, which of course is kind of hard to jam in 5 to 7 minutes. But it sounded more like you were going to talk about the background and history and point of Visual Studio Code, but really it's just a walkthrough, as if we kind of already knew what we were talking about. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to the general evaluator. Thank you, Tony.
And now to evaluate the end, we have Alex, who will be helping wrap up our evaluation.
Thank you, fellow general evaluator. You need to stand up.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay, yes. It's just kind of.
Yeah.
So today, Leanne gave us a speech on autism and technology, and she did a manual project. So this is very important. You're doing 10 projects in Content Communicator, and every time you're progressing forward. And these projects are incremental improvement. So thank you for doing it manually. And what was special comments from you looking for arcs and arms and filler words? So I count quite a bit, so I will tell you, but it is clear that you may need to practice it. And since we are recording, yes, since we recording this, you can listen to it and see, because when you are speaking, you do not hear it. Sometimes we using, well, it depends on grammarian, can indicate it, may not, but video recording reviews will be very helpful. You may significantly see how it adjusts and improves, so I recommend you to do it. Overall, I think speech was very well organized. I would say sometimes you can have more kind of poise or passion, a little bit more body language to indicate, so audience will kind of a little bit more invigorated. overall audience were attracted and were very much attentive, but it's usually if it goes with very same voice, towards the end people start drifting away, and that's why with body language, your voice helps people stay engaged. I think since it was a research topic, I think it was very well researched. Live, internet, applications. I think now with manual is a little bit more outdated because it expects more time in the library. Whereas in our fast-paced world, of course, internet is 99%. Yes, it would be very unusual if you spend one day in the library. Yes, because it would be very hard to get it. What could be here more from research point of view is bring more kind of medical portion here, because this is now very well researched stuff. It's maybe not for sake of a speech, but more like for research part of it. Overall, thank you for a great speech, and please continue doing manual speeches. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And now could everyone please bow their heads and we'll vote for the best evaluator. All those who thought that Vince was the best evaluator for his evaluation of Tony, please raise your hand. Okay, and all those who thought that Alex was the better evaluator, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you very much. You may unbow your heads. Okay, now is the fun part where we will call on some reports. Brian, do you mind giving your evaluation, or excuse me, your report on the times for everyone's speeches?
Yes, so this is my first time using this app, so I'm trying to follow through, but it was great because then I didn't have to keep track of the specific time slices. It did it automatically for me. The table topics, generally, I won't go through everybody because there's quite a few people, but generally everybody was right around a minute timing. Just a few that were a little bit over a minute. As far as the prepared speech, Tony was right at 9 minutes for his speech. Leanne was 6 minutes and 42 seconds. The evaluation by Vince was 3 minutes and 34 seconds, and Alex's evaluation was 2 minutes and 47 seconds. And generally, overall meeting time, we're right on schedule. I have to go earlier because of my speeches. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. William, before I make this general evaluation too nebulous, could you please give us your report on the ums and the ahs and who used the word of the day?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. On the subject of ums and ahs, I did not do well today. Again, it's part of the Minnesota Nice. I just quickly ring the bell. The other thing is a lot of people will put so right in the middle of their sentence, such as this, or they'll say and. They'll run them in together, and I think they're trying to hide them, so I just didn't catch them. The other part was the Minnesota Nice. On the good side of this role, however, there were a bunch of people that used the word of the day. Mike, Vince, and Leanne, you all used the word of the day at least twice, maybe 3 or 4 times. The other people who used the word of the day would be Alex, Tony, Katie, and possibly Clea.
Yeah, that was the word of the day.
My word picture award, again, I was looking for descriptive phrasing. I didn't see a lot of opportunities that were real obvious to use this. However, when Monet came up, being a painter, I was really looking for something spectacular here. You did spell out the scene in the garden and how it was portrayed from different points of view. I think you did something with the sunlight, the differing lights. I'm going to award this to you today.
That was a begrudging award. Like, you kind of did it.
So much more.
I was hoping for better. I won't disappoint next time. Thank you.
There's always room for improvement.
There is always room for improvement, yes. Moral of the story. Okay, so our dear Madam Table Topics Master, could you please come up here and award the wise old owl to the best answer?
Oh, let's see.
You can ask for nominations anytime you can think.
Could I have some nominations for the wise old owl for the table topics?
I liked how Clea expanded on the way you started her down the path of Monet eventually had a lens removed, and that changed the way that he saw, or the way that he interpreted purple wavelengths.
Second.
With that, award.
I'll take it.
Wait a minute, take
Bake
a
and
shake.
shake.
Take
Oh,
a
Practice
we,
good.
we worked on this, so it's.
shake. Handle
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
Take and shake.
Take a shake.
I was gonna nominate you, Alex,
Next
because
time.
I liked that you brought in purple as a royal color. That was
Mhm.
good. And something about dyes. I don't know where you learned that fact, but good to know.
Actually, it was a beetle.
Interesting. Yeah, really interesting. Some fact we can take away. So finally, the point that we've all been waiting for, best speakers and evaluators. Can I please get a drum roll for our best speaker? And the best speaker, it wasn't close, it was very close, is Leanne.
Bake and shake.
Take a shake.
And you also come at front because you want the camera there, yes? Otherwise, nobody
Makes
sees
sense.
something happening behind the scene.
Got it. Unless we forget, because evaluations are key, our best evaluator is Vince. The pressure. So overall, general evaluation of the meeting. We have 13 people here today. That's really exciting. I think there's a lot of energy. I will commend our Toastmaster for the day for really keeping with the theme of purple. It is sort of a nebulous idea, and you gave a concrete theme to our meeting. So I appreciate that, and I think we should all strive to do something similar and incorporate that into all of our meetings. I love the two speeches. I thought they were really interesting. As a non-coder, I love to see code and see how you can manipulate it, and then what pops up. So that's for everyone here who does development as a full-time job. You put more stuff out there. It's exciting for everyone to see that. And Leanne, your topic was really interesting, and I'd like to hear the success story of how you can work with children who traditional learning might not be the way for them. So I appreciate that and enjoyed it. And with that, I will turn it over to our Toastmaster to wrap up our meeting.
Thank you. And with that, I think we're just kind of going into the last little bit. I want to thank everyone who did participate. The idea of what the theme is kind of, Vince sent me an email, said, oh, by the way, you're Toastmaster tomorrow. I'm like, I am, because it's been just crazy, whatever. But the Spark Plug Award and the Fuzzy Mouse, and these are two things that we go through and talk about, what's going on. And while I liked a lot of the different types of things that we talked about, some of the technology, I really thought Tony did an outstanding job of showing up how Visual Studio Code works with Mac. And the Spark Plug goes to the person who brought some spark to this meeting. The history of this award actually goes back to Toastmasters, a club that I joined called Realtors 2512, a lady named Bea Bernay. And she always said, Mike, you talk too fast. You need to learn to slow down, take a breath, and enjoy the moment. And I'm going to pass this to Vince, because I think, Vince, you need to slow down, take a breath, and enjoy the moment. And with that, we'll turn it back to our president, Vince.
Mike, good job. See, what we got going on here? Do we have any new business before we get going? How about any announcements? Anything coming up? Pretty clear. All right, let's see. Next week's schedule. Next week's Toastmaster is Leanne. All right, great. Seriously, it's been like week in, week out. I'm like, what I'm trying to do is show the next week's Toastmasters so that we can remind them without them not finding out 6 days later. And for some strange reason, week after week, whoever next week's Toastmasters can't seem to make it this week. And it's so weird. So finally, for the first time in like 2 months, next week's Toastmaster is here. So please, Leanne, before next Monday afternoon, please come up with a theme and send it out so we all have time to incorporate that into our goals. And ask for an introduction, and please make sure that you respond and give her a proper introduction so that she doesn't have to just wing it on the fly. Let's see, what else do we have to do here? Great. Do we have a closing thought from our timer, Brian?
In conjunction with the theme again, another quote from Prince that I thought was appropriate. It's about a unique experience. Everyone has their own experience. That's why we're here, to go through our experience, to learn, go down the paths, and eventually you may have gone down so many paths and learned so much that you don't have to come back again.
With that, I will join the meeting.
Good job.
Searching through.
Yeah. Forgot.
It all goes scratching.
I'll just like,